This is Robert Clotworthy, the narrator of The Curse of Oak Island, and I have a question for you. Could it be that you are listening to The Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream?
This is a top pocket find, mate, for sure.
Hi guys, welcome back to Jeff's channel. My name is Paige, and remember to smash that subscribe button and notification bell on Jeff's YouTube and Twitch videos. Thank you.
All right, that was Paige. Thank you so much, Paige, for that. That's awesome. Welcome to the Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream. I'm your host, Jeff Freeman, and right over here, I have my co-host, Jack Campbell. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you, Jeff.
And today we have the honor of having back on the show, Dr. Aaron Taylor. Dr. Taylor, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me back.
Oh man, I tell you what, I've been waiting for it all season, simply because of the fact that, we had you on back in December and it was a great show and it was awesome. But I know you were so restrained because there was so much that was still to come on the show for us that you couldn't talk about. That had to be hard.
Oh yeah, that was tough, and trying to remember, if that had been already shown. And no, I was, I'm much freer now, so I'm really looking forward to talking today.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I know that in Canada also, you all of you have not even seen the season finale yet. I think that's going to be on tomorrow night. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, we've all seen it, of course, and again, it was a very emotional one right at the end there. I know many of us with Rick, the portion with Rick going on there, and the tribute that his brother Marty gave to him, and the fact that you all said you guys would follow him anywhere with his leadership. Man, that I tell you what, we all cheered up.
Yeah, I know I can't speak for other people, but I wasn't expecting that from what Marty was saying, and I definitely wasn't expecting the reaction from Rick. I think everyone was quite choked up, and Rick is a very special guy. And I know I'm not telling anyone here anything they don't already know, but here's a turning 70, I believe. I don't think it's a secret his age, and no one worked harder than Rick. And right to the end, we were knee deep in the swamp, freezing, and he's just slugging away with me right there. And star of one of the biggest shows on TV, down in the muck. And that's inspiring as far as I can, I've always been drawn to people like that. My father was like that, and I just have the utmost respect for people like Rick. And Marty's no slouch either, and Craig Tester, he's not afraid of the working end of a shovel. So
Right.
yeah, no, it was a wonderful experience. But that last day was certainly emotional for everyone.
Oh, I can imagine, especially after all the hours and everything you guys put in on that island each and every day. It's amazing. And then being able to turn around and have a meeting like that, it really had to, it topped off the season and for us as well. Just simply because we know that so much integrity on the island from all the different members, the cast members, the crew, the camera folks, the sound people, all the people that are there. You guys make a wonderful program for us and engaging, and it's entertaining, but it's also very educational. And it's just wonderful.
Where were you and Miriam on that? Were you I know you were not in the war room at the time.
I was in the research center because of COVID. They had Miriam and I were in the research center. Laird and Liz were in the museum. They had us scattered all over just for numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you didn't have so many in there at once. Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we get started here, I know that you, as being a teacher also, and with COVID going on, I know that's made a big difference for you happening. But in the past, I know that you have worked with, and I think you call them field schools, where you start and you go out and you actually teach students in the field of archaeology, of course. You've done this around in Nova Scotia and also down in Cuba as well. Is that correct?
Yes, we've 4 years we've run a field school in Cuba. And I'm glad you brought that up. We run a field school for students, and that runs usually in May, sometimes June. It's 3 weeks. but we run a public program for non-students, and we've run 2 of those. Last February was obviously canceled, but we're going to run another one hopefully this February. You don't need any experience. The last one we ran, we had a 14-year-old working beside an 81-year-old.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we take 12 people. It's on a slave plantation in Cuba. We work alongside Cuban archaeologists, and it's a lot of fun. We spend 6 days in the field, another 6 days back in Havana in the lab, analyzing and processing the artifacts. We're going to museums, cultural trips, dancing. It is a lot of fun. So hopefully we'll be able to run it again in February 2022. I'll post information once it's been decided. I think late summer. It's through St. Mary's University in Halifax. And if they green light it, then I'll put up all the information, and then first come, first serve sort of thing. But yeah, it is a lot of fun.
You met Miriam that way, didn't you, originally?
Yes, Miriam was a student of mine. 2 years, she came twice. And wonderful student, hardworking, and it was quite challenging in Cuba. I don't know what 40 degrees Celsius is in Fahrenheit, but it's hot, and day in, day out, she worked her butt off. We had a great banter. She was always like, "Dr. Taylor, here's your book, here's your pencil, you forgot your glasses." And when the producer said, "Aaron, do you know any female archaeologists who might want to come on the show and work?" I immediately thought of Miriam, because I know she wasn't going to be shy. I know she wasn't going to be too deferential to me. And she's excellent. So I phoned her up. She's like, "Oh, I don't know. Can I have a day to think?" And I said, "Yes, take a day and think." An hour later, she phoned me back and said, "You know what? I'm in." And I think she was an amazing addition to the show.
Absolutely.
Of course she
Yeah.
was.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've got a couple pictures here. If I can, let's see here. There's one there. Now, this is one of your teams down in Cuba, and I think that's Miriam standing right behind you, isn't it?
Right in the middle with the white shirt. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then, this is a team. Now, they're mixed up from all kinds of different people. You get people joining you from all over the world. Is that right?
We've had China, the United States, mostly from Canada, and in this one with students, we also invite Cuban students come with us as well. And there's been lifelong friendships made between the Canadian students and the Cuban students, and it's pretty amazing. Yeah,
it is. It's truly amazing. And I know that this, unfortunately, this particular place, it turns out it was a slave plantation, I guess, right? And I know you guys had some interesting finds there. There's one here that was showing, I'm going to bring it up real quick. It looks like a shackle key or some kind of, what was this piece here?
Yeah, a student found that, and I believe it's a shackle key. It was just a reminder about where we are. It's a spectacularly beautiful place. But it also has that really horrible dark side. And the whole idea of the project was to tell the story of these enslaved people. They were listed as livestock with the livestock, and they didn't have a voice. So this project is giving them a voice. And it's a pretty important story. And the students who come are very serious about what they're doing. There's a time to have fun, and then there's a time to get to work. And it's been an amazing, amazing project. So if that's something your listeners are interested in getting their hands dirty, and drop me a line and I'll tell you more about it.
All right. I tell you, I was just watching the chat as you mentioned that. I was watching the chat over here, and people are going, "What? 12? When did we?" And you might have, you're going to have about 300 people trying to sign up for. I think it takes 12.
I'd be willing to make 2 trips. And just before we get off the topic, Americans can participate because it's designated as an educational trip. Americans can participate in it, no problem. So your American listeners, don't worry about it. If you're interested, drop me
February
a line.
2022. All right. Well, you heard him say that he's going to put up something on our group page. He'll let us know, or he can let me know, or Linda, and we can do it. Put it up
Yeah.
for him. But man, that's truly exciting. And I know that you and I have talked about the field of archaeology. You don't see too many. I think you mentioned it yourself on our last interview. You said, well, you know why you don't see TV shows about archaeology that much? Because a lot of it is boring. I mean, there's a lot of painstaking work that goes in, and not a lot of, sometimes you might be in the middle of a work, dig someplace that really just produces piece after piece, but then you might have some that really you struggle to find, different things. Talk about some of the archaeology, digs that you've done in the past. Have you had some of both?
Yeah, I've dug on many sites where we found nothing.
Mhm.
In archaeology, they say, well, it's negative evidence. Well, it's not that interesting. Yeah, if you don't find anything, it tells a story, but
Mhm.
you like to find things. I've worked on a lot of pre-contact Mi'kmaq sites,
Yep.
and you don't find a lot of stuff, but when you do, they're very valuable to find, valuable in the sense of telling a story, not monetarily.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
we've just started into the cemetery down in Cuba, trying to find the plantation cemetery. So that's very interesting. See
Wow.
if they, followed similar mortuary practices that they had in Africa.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've had a lot of different experiences, and some sites are very rich, like the Ball site.
Yeah.
It came up with a lot of artifacts. And then you can go to some place like the swamp, where we weren't finding a lot of artifacts until we moved up land.
Right.
And that's what I found really interesting is, of all the sites that I've ever worked on that had that much labor involved in building something,
Mhm.
you found tons of smoking
Right.
pipes,
Right.
water jugs, eating plates, and stuff
Right.
like that. If you're going to have a lot of people working, you're going to need a lot of, and it was almost, I'm not saying it was, but it was almost like someone was coming behind and cleaning up, trying to hide evidence that people were there. That's what
Right.
it felt like. That's
Yeah, I
what it
remember you
felt.
mentioning that on the show as well.
One of our members, Jan Alden, asked, "What's the oldest artifact you found, and where'd you find it at?
On the island, or
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 all anywhere?"
working on an archaic site here in Nova Scotia, I found a knife, a stone knife, about 4,000 years old. So
No.
um,
Wow.
that
A
was probably
stone knife.
the oldest. It was spectacular, and that was an amazing project. In fact, in 10 minutes, it was part of a bank that had eroded away, and I was sitting beside a colleague, and I looked in the water. I said, "Do you see something weird in the water?" And he's like, "Yeah, what is that?" So we went down, and in the water, we picked up this, 4,000-year stone axe. And then it's just like, oh my God. And just in 10 minutes, we had like 10 stone tools
Wow.
that, you're
Wow.
lucky to find one, and they had eroded out of a bank.
Wow.
So yeah, you get days like that. Not many, not many. That was a sweet Jesus day for sure.
Yeah, speaking of that, Patricia Rempel asked that question. She goes, I loved your sweet Jesus moment. What other moments have you had? And obviously, that's one of them right there, is a sweet Jesus moment. Yeah, so, we heard you say that on the island, but that was definitely one there. Have you had many others like that?
Well, I'm trying to get over swearing. I have kids, so I don't like to swear. And the sweet Jesus moment just came, like, I was exhausted. It was near the end. And when you get tired and you get a little bit silly, and
Mhm.
it just, next thing you know, Rick hands me the base of that plate, and it was just like, sweet Jesus, look at that. Because you don't, on the island, if you've seen, all the artifacts were ceramics, were just tiny little
Yes.
shards, like,
Right.
and to find something that big, it was just like, and then Rick's looking all excited because he found it, and it's just, next thing you know, sweet Jesus came out, and
I think his comment was, "It took all year, but we finally got you one," or something like
yeah,
that. He said.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. No one can compete with Gary though. Gary's got the, he's got the
Holy
saying for sure.
schmoly, all right.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah.
He
No one
does
can
have a
compete
lot
with
of them.
him.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we know that you, oh, and I wanted to mention too, you had mentioned the Mi'kmaq people, and you have a PhD. Did I hear that right? You have a PhD in your learning about the Mi'kmaq people?
Yeah. And in how when people first entered the Maritimes 13,000 years ago, 3 times older than the pyramids. So
Mhm.
my PhD is looking at sea level rise, how the landscape changed, and how
Mhm.
understanding the landscape will help us predict where more sites are located. The site that I talk about with the knife, the 4,000-year stone knife, fishermen found it. A woman was and her husband were fishing. She bent down to wash her hand off and literally put it on top of an arrowhead.
Wow.
So most of the sites are found by people hunting, fishing. So I
Mhm.
I wanted to find out if there's a way of making it less chance and more predictable where these sites are. So that's what my PhD was on. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. And yeah, and again, we know that you had also mentioned about doing one of your field schools in Peru. Now, obviously, I'm assuming, of course, that that's been put on hold, but Peru, wow, tell us
Yeah,
about that. Where is that going to be in Peru?
it's a place called Sierra de Oro. It's an hour inland from Lima, and it's a pre-Inca site,
Oh,
so it
really?
predates the Incan Empire. And we'll be joining a university in Lima and doing a month-long project there.
Wow.
So if you want to try Peru or Cuba, and I'd love to do one on Oak Island, but I'd never get permission.
Yeah, yeah, I assume so. Oh my goodness. Well, that's really neat. And for the fact that you're doing that, and what better way to help to teach, of course. You can do classroom all day long, but you get them out in the field like this with these field schools that you're doing. That's where you
Yeah,
really teach people about this is what it's all about. Like you said before, there's going to be many days where we go along, we really don't find anything. And then there's going to be
yeah,
days where we find tidbits, and then there's going to be days where you find more. But again, that's where you piece that story together from all those little things you find, and you come up with conclusions as to what the site
yeah,
was, who was there, when they were there, and all that sort of thing,
yeah.
which is really
And
cool.
the field school, I'll just finish.
Yeah.
And let's, like, for example, I had one time I had a student show up dressed head to toe like Indiana Jones. Loves archaeology, loves it. Great. By lunchtime, he had 2 blisters, hated archaeology. He was done. He tried it. Nope.
Yep.
I had a student come up to me and she's just like, Professor Taylor, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm an accountant. I needed a credit. I'm giving it a try. She ended up being my best student.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you don't know. You don't know until you give it a try. And if you love it, you love it a lot.
Yep.
So give it a try. That's all I say.
Yeah, I think I would enjoy it. And again, like you said, there are some those moments, but I think me personally, I would definitely I like to metal detect. I like to find things and doing the archaeology. But like you said, it's finding all those bits and pieces to tell a story. If you go onto a site that is maybe even a historical site, um, and you can actually start to work towards piecing all the story together of like Rick, you hear Rick always say who, what, why, where, and when. That's what you guys do by the evidence that you find. I think that would personally, I'm pretty sure I would like it. I've never done it before, but I think I would enjoy it a lot. That's really
Yeah.
neat. I better try
You'd
to.
be
When you put
more
that
than
out,
welcome.
I
You're more
know.
than welcome. I'll
Oh
save you a
man, I don't
spot.
know. I tell you what, if I get the opportunity, if I have the time when it happens, I'm gonna jump on. I'm gonna jump
All
on
right.
that. I think that would be
Okay.
really, really neat. It's whether it be Cuba or Peru or wherever. I really don't care. I think it'd be interesting and learning from you at the same time as a teacher. I couldn't ask for better, honestly. I don't mean to puff you up too
I
much,
would
but
love it,
quite
Jeff.
honestly, I would be honored to do that.
Oh, I'd be great. I'd be great.
So getting into Oak Island now, we know that you originally, if I remember correctly, you originally appeared on Oak Island on season 7. I think it was episode 18, where you came out to look at the stone paving. Tell us a little bit about, first of all, how did you get approached to come out to Oak Island? How did this all come about?
So I work with Dr. Ian Spooner in the Earth and Environmental Sciences. Our offices are right next to each other. And he said, Aaron, I got this conundrum. You know, there's something happening on Oak Island in the swamp, this flat area. What do you think? And I said, well, you know, I know in Cuba, they flattened this entire field behind the mansion house, couple acres, with rubble stone flat so that they could take carts over it. So I know that it's been done. You know, it's a technique that people have used. And he's like, would you be interested coming to Oak Island and taking a peek? I said, I'll come and take a peek. So I signed all the NDAs and everything, and I went down and, you know, I was nervous, you know, got to meet Rick, or Marty was there, and Jack and a bunch of others. And it's so funny. So we went and looked at that first paved area, and it looks human made to me. I don't believe glaciers did that. So I was talking about that, and then they said behind this could go on the blooper reel, but they said, okay, can you come take a look at something else? So near the eye of the swamp. So I said, sure, I'll come. And there's this huge, Billy had created this huge hole, and Dr. Spooner was down at the bottom of this hole, and he was looking at the profile wall, and he's just like, Aaron, you come down and take a look at this. And I was trying to act cool and look like I know what I'm doing. I take a step, boom, head first down into the mud, past my shoulders. Ian's having to dig me out. So they pull me out. I got mud up my nose. I'm choking on mud. And I was like, oh my God. And the camera guys are like, no, this is great. This is great. And I was like, you're not going to show that. Oh, this will be wonderful. Like, oh, but yeah, that was a pretty humbling moment.
Oh my goodness. And that was on your first time on the island.
We had a member, John, Joe Olin. What were your really initial thoughts when you looked at that road? Did you think it was real or
the paved area?
Yeah.
I thought it was. I think it's probably human made. It was hard to detect, but when you have Dr. Ian Spooner looking at it, finding pieces of wood under these huge boulders, glaciers don't do that. So yeah, there's the hole. So I think it's human made. I'd like to, you know, I only got to look at it for 10 minutes. So
really, wow.
It's hard to say.
Yeah. That was interesting. And then you were talking about the different layers. You had actually had in this portion here, you were still over at the actual stone paving there. And Billy Gerhardt came in and made a scoop out of there so you guys could see the actual edge and see the stones stacked up. And you had mentioned that during that it, you know, the glacier, this was not deposited by glacier movement and pushing the rocks around. It's too uniform, too flat.
Exactly. Remind me when we talk about the stone path. I want to talk about glaciers with that, because I've read some people have written in, you know, commenting on how it looks and such. But we can talk when we get to that. I'm sure you have I'll follow what you want to talk about.
All right. Well, like I said, like I was saying earlier, I did kind of lay out a path, but like I said before, if we deviate off that, I don't care. It's really it's all about what you want to share with us. And if you have an idea that pops up, please jump on and go with it at any time. But this was really interesting because, like I said, we saw you on the island for the first time. And right away, you when I watched that episode, season 7, episode 18, and any if you want to check that out, go back and watch that again. That was his, I think, debut on the island, Mr. Taylor's. But when you were on there, you did have a lot of confidence, and I picked up on that right away. You know, whether you were trying to portray, you know, that or not, it came across very well. And and knowing that, we were starting to get very comfortable with Dr. Spooner as well, and his confidence in things at that point. And then he brought on more expert eyes to come and see it as well, and brought you on the scene. And that's one of the interesting things about Marty and Rick and the team, is that, now we've seen this team go, and I mentioned this the other day, but we've seen this team go from episode 1, season 1, and grow from just a couple people on the island with some shovels and a backhoe to now having this Oak Island team, the Fellowship of the Dig, that you are part of. And thank you, that you did sign on and become part of this fellowship, because, like I said, you're bringing expert eyes to the scene, and you're helping to, decipher all these different things that were going on the island at the time. And that was really cool. So we saw you come on in season 7, episode 18, and then there was nothing. That was the rest of the season finished out, and we didn't hear about you again. Then you emerged back on at the very beginning of season 8, and tell us about that a little bit. How did that come about?
Well, COVID. I was supposed to be in Cuba running my field schools, and they got canceled. So David McGinnis said, Aaron, I'm going to be doing a 2-week excavation on this stone feature. Don't know what it is. I could use a hand. I said, all right, my stuff got canceled, so you got me for 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks ended up being the whole season. I didn't know. I'd only been on it for 1 day previously, and I still didn't know what was really going on. And, I was treated incredibly well. I wasn't asked to say anything I didn't want to say. I didn't have to talk about treasure if I didn't want to. They said, Aaron, you're the archaeologist. Do what you would do normally.
Right.
And they treated me like gold. So they said, Aaron, we have another thing we'd like you to take a look at. Could you take a look at that? And then, we got one more. And then they're like, oh, you know what? Just stay the whole season. Like, that works for me.
Yeah.
So that's how it just started off, giving David McGinnis, and he's a friend of mine, a hand. So
Wow.
A lot of people have asked about David. I've seen a lot of people say,
yeah.
I heard he died. No. David has many interests. Archaeology is one of them. But and he says, Aaron, I'm 67. My back can't do, long projects. So he came, he did the Pine Tar Kiln, and then he had other things he wanted to do. So he is alive and well. And who knows, maybe he'll be back. I don't know. I think he's excellent at what he does, and it's fun working with him. So
yeah. And we did, and that was our first exposure with him as well. Mr. McGinnis coming on the island, and doing the Pine Tar Kiln. And again, I've got a couple of pictures here of that. And this is actually even before Rick and Marty got onto the island and all of them. Yeah. And then David there, working with you. And it was kind of interesting because we were hoping to see him again. I was, anyway, hoping to see him again later in the season. But I guess he was, like you said, just there for a couple of weeks to investigate this and then move on to other projects.
Yeah, and he's a neat guy. I mean, he came to archaeology late. Like, he did his master's degree in his 60s. Like, he was a probationary officer until he was in his late 50s, 60s, and he's just always loved archaeology. So he went and got a master's degree over in Scotland, and now he's doing what he loves. So it'd be great to work with him again.
Yeah, I would imagine. This was really neat for us in the Pine Tar Kiln, and again, one of the questions, and I believe this was from Linda. Actually, you met Linda earlier in the pre-show. Linda asked the question about the Pine Tar Kiln. Was there actual evidence of pine tar found? Did you guys ever find actual,
No.
Nothing?
So no, we took analysis. So I'm 70% sure it's a pine tar kiln. First of all, it's man-made. So we answered the question, is this natural or is this man-made? It's man-made. So what can it be? And then you go into looking at Scandinavian pine tar kilns and how they're created. And that's the closest we could come, was a pine tar kiln. It's something. There was a lot of burning there. It happened more than one day, continually burning, which a pine tar kiln would have.
Right.
It was on a hill, a slope, so you're going to have air, the slope's going to direct the liquid.
Mm-hmm.
But and you know, if it's 300-400 years old, you might not find evidence in the soil, but you could.
Mm-hmm.
We had a botanist come on, and he said, "Well, there's a good chance you'd find some pine tar sap still
Right.
somewhere," but we didn't.
Hmm.
So you go with what's most likely.
Right.
It's most likely a pine tar kiln. Is it definitive? No, absolutely not.
Right. Now, pine tar would be used in many different things, and sealing is what I'm thinking. It's going to be used on wood. It's going to be used for a sealing compound of some sort to seal water from getting in. Is that your best guess on that as well? Best
Yeah,
estimate?
it was really important for ships
Yep.
to use, and Scandinavia made a lot. They had, you know, if you have really good pine trees, I forget, I think it's the Jasper pine, you get the best pine tar. So Scandinavia were big, and New England was big. But if you're out on the Atlantic and you need pine tar, you pull off where you see some pine trees and you make your own. And
Right.
it might not be of great quality, but it's better than nothing.
Mm.
So the pine on Oak Island is not the best pine for it, but again, when you need it, you got to
Right.
have it. You can't just go buy it somewhere.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, that makes total
Scandinavia.
sense. Yep. Yeah. So, and that's something that, yeah, we were kind of wondering too, because, you know, obviously, I mean, I think most of us were hoping because we saw them talk about this line that led between the Money Pit area and Lot 15, where this is. And they were talking about this line leading up there between the two. And of course, I'm thinking, okay, it's got to be a tunnel entrance. You know, we got all these stones built up. We wanted it to be a tunnel entrance. And then when you guys were digging down and you found you found the coal, first of all, and
Charcoal.
charcoal, sorry, yes, charcoal, not coal. You found charcoal, and then you was obviously like you had mentioned earlier, a burn event over several burn events or continual burn events going on. So I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, oh wow, what is that pine tar kiln? You know, I wanted it to be opening to a shaft or something.
You
Um,
and me both.
yeah. Yeah. So, but it's still interesting, still nonetheless. And it kind of leads back to if it were, then it was maybe used by a navy of some sort, maybe the British Navy, assuming that it would probably be the British Navy that was using it as a pine tar kiln. But then, of course, then they came up the other one saying that you would also maybe use it for lining a treasure vault. Of course, I think that came up too. Is that likelihood? Yeah, probably is. But is it possible? Yes. Was it likely? Don't know. Have no idea, I guess, at that point, right? There
Yeah,
was also the
not
stone.
sure.
I wanted to kind of get your assessment on this particular stone that was found. We saw it. It obviously, it looked like a definite drill hole in it there. And then you've got this sloped edge that you pointed all this out during the show.
Beveled edge. Yeah.
Yeah, the beveled edge. What was your final analysis on this particular stone?
Well, again, it's nature didn't do that,
Right.
so it was done with tools. Was it like you do that bevel edge so that it would fit to another stone?
Mhm.
What's the hole for? Could it be a survey marker?
Yeah,
They've been
that's the key
found on
there.
other parts of the island.
Mhm.
So it's a head scratcher. We're obviously keeping an eye out for other ones. We searched all over the area for something that would have matched this stone. Didn't find it.
Hmm.
So it's just another one of those intriguing things on Oak Island.
Yeah, one of those other anomalies pop up.
Now, what are the year range for the kiln and that right there? What years were you thinking?
So what isn't very exciting for people are rusty nails, but to archaeologists, we love rusty nails. And there are three types of nails. I'm sure you got your viewers know more about rusty nails than they ever cared to. Um, but so you have wrought nails, so they're handmade, hand forged nails. You have cut nails, cut by machine, and then
Mhm.
you have your wire nails. So your hand wrought nails come in really early. Carmen leg 1550s, even earlier than that. As long as they've been pounding iron, they've been making fasteners.
Right.
And then you have the cut nails, which come in 1780s, 90s. So we found wrought nails, and on top of that, cut nails. So we had two different occupation periods
Wow.
on this. So if it was a pine tar kiln, people would know what they looked like. So you had an earlier group using it for pine tar. Another group comes by, they need pine tar, and you have the cut nails. So we believe it was at least used by two different groups in two different time periods.
Wow.
So that's what a rusty nail can tell you. So, yeah,
That's fascinating.
it's an interesting site. It's complicated.
Yep. And you're right, because of the fact that and I hadn't thought of, well, I guess we do think about it in that sense. You know, you talk about the different types of nails, and that helps you date that, and you find those at different layers like that. That's interesting, and I don't know if that was something that was clearly described to us on the show, but that's why I wanted to ask you. I knew there were some insights that you would have on this that we may not have seen on the show or may have forgotten about. And that's really interesting that so two different groups. Wow.
You're not going to get the earliest, like we can't say it was 1520 or 14. You can't get that on iron objects, but you can get, the forged nails were used up until about 1780, and then they moved to the cut nails.
Right.
So we have the hand forged, and then we have the cut. So, it's definitely pre-searcher, pre-searcher, depositor period. So that's how I categorize things: depositor period, searcher period.
Right.
So when I'm looking at ceramics and stuff like that, does it matter if this was this piece of ceramic was 1770 or 1760? Not for this.
Right.
Is it pre-searcher, or is it depositor period or searcher period? And that's what the artifacts were I was trying to glean from the artifacts, which it was from.
Right. And that's exactly what Marty wants to know too. Marty and Rick, that helps them to decipher the time period in their brain. Is this from searchers looking for something, or is it prior to that? Because, obviously if it's prior to that, that makes it more storytelling, I guess, is to trying to figure out the who, what, why, where, and when. And that's the thing about this, and again, we've talked about this before, but the history of what's going on here over the years on Oak Island is fascinating in itself. And again, and everybody's heard me say this before, but I talk about the fact that would we love them to find a great treasure on the island? Yes, we all would. Every one of us would like that to happen. But we also want answers to the story like Rick wants. We want answers to know who was there and all the over the time periods. And Jack has pointed this out several times too, that when they laid all the stuff out on the table at the end of season 7, you're looking at different things on this table from different time periods. It's you just want to get answers to all, what were the people doing on this little island out in the middle and, in Mahone Bay out there. It's just fascinating. And that's what you guys are putting together to try to tell that story. And that's just history in the making right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rick, and Marty, you could see they're getting frustrated. They get frustrated and they're like, but what does it mean? And well, it's a small piece to the puzzle. Well, what does it mean? I don't know. That's not how it works. This is a very complex site. And I think what I like about it is, instead of just like a chicken with its head cut off looking for the money pit, we're now trying to understand the whole history of Oak Island. What was going on here prior to the search? And if we can find enough clues and help us tell the story, it might help us take us to the money pit. What was made in the swamp, and I don't know if it's time for us to start talking about the swamp yet or not, but
go ahead.
I remember Rick going, well, I think we've got an anomaly in the swamp. What do you think about excavating it? And I said, an anomaly through a swamp? count me in. Miriam's like, oh yeah. A couple of the others were like, not so much. But to do something like that, find something in a swamp is incredible. Like, it's history making. And it's not the Holy Grail, Ark of the Covenant, but it's still, in archaeology, it's something that's very unique. And when do you get to excavate something that's very unique? Almost never.
Right.
Jeff has heard me say before, my dad, I call it a ship. I've always called it a ship from day one. Jeff will attest to that.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know about, we haven't gotten to there yet, but so when
Just got a
Dr. Spooner,
diagram of it from what they showed,
yeah,
on the picture.
yeah, we'll need to positively identify it one way or the other. We need to get a hold of whatever's there.
And
Um,
as yep.
so whatever, I'm sure Billy's cooking some way up to get down to the bottom of that. Again, it's complicated, but it's not impossible. So yeah, so we literally dove right into the swamp and began excavating this thing, and it kept getting bigger and bigger, and it had cribbing underneath it, and you start asking yourself, like, what is this thing?
Right.
And then
I know,
Rick's like,
oh, I'm
go
sorry. I
ahead.
was just going to say, and I know Jack had kind of talked about this earlier, but Joe Holland had asked Joe Holland asked the question, "What were your initial thoughts?" So when you got to this, obviously you were working, I think, up at the Mound or something at the time, and then they were saying, "Okay, we need to get down here and take a look at this," because they were starting to uncover this the stone roadway. And so I don't know, they came to you and said, "Hey, we need you to come down and check this out." What were your initial thoughts when you stepped up and started really looking at this?
I thought maybe a tiny little slipway, that they brought boats up on. I first thought, oh, maybe it's natural, and Dr. Spooner's like, I don't think this is natural. And when Dr. Spooner talks, you listen.
Yeah.
That is a sharp man. So I was just like, oh God. And then you go to the logistics. Well, how are you going to excavate a stone road through a swamp?
Yeah.
So then we had to come up with a strategy for doing that, and we had to pump the swamp, drain the swamp. We put it in a wading pool. I've heard people, ask what happened to the water. Well, the Ministry of the Environment is very strict about what we could and could not do. So we put it in a holding pond, and then we returned it when we were done for the end of the season.
Oh, wow.
So Scott Barlow, who is a magician when it comes to, he could make a dishwasher fly if he had to. So he set up the pumps, and we drained it, and then we just literally got in there on our hands and knees with buckets, and we, filled the buckets with muck, put it on the wash table, sprayed it down, collected as much artifacts as we can. That's the only way you could do it. You had to spray it with water. And we got some artifacts, but it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And you're just like, what on earth did they build this for? And once we got it completely, all the dirt removed, like this, we realized this took a long time. And then Billy came down and he said, holy, this would take a lot of men, a lot of time to build. And where did the stones come from? They're not beach stones. Dr. Spooner looked at them and he said, they're not beach stones. They're not from fields. They're not from the rockless beach. Might they be ballast stones from ships? We don't know where those stones came from. And, and people said, well, they look kind of rugged. And how would you get a cart on it? If you go to Louisburg, Fortress Louisburg in Cape Breton in Canada, they have the huge wheel carts, and they would get over that no problem at all. So it wouldn't be an issue at all.
And they had access on the island to pull them also. So
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
The oxen. Yeah, we found, yeah, Gary found so many different ox shoes, around the island. So that would be your means by pulling those things for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I don't remember if they found ox shoes actually on this was the first section here that I'm showing in the picture, that was found, this particular part. And I know that you guys obviously found that it turned and then it started following up the side of the swamp, following in the uplands, kind of just following along the edge there. And one of the folks in here asked a question, and while we're on this, I wanted to bring that up. He was asking about the fact that this portion of it. And I find your name here in just a moment. I'm sorry if I've got to look back through here, but he mentioned the fact that this particular portion of the stone road is very defined. We see it. It's obviously, so much width and so much length. You can see it right there. It's very clear. But then as you turn and you start going up alongside the heading towards the eye of the swamp or the Nolan's property, the house up there, it doesn't look so defined. And
Yeah.
I guess the question was, are you sure that that's really a stone road? I mean,
So,
go ahead,
yeah,
explain that a little bit if you would.
that's a great question. If you just look at this and at the middle of the picture, so right where your arrow is right now, if you just move your arrow around,
Yep, right
so
there.
right at the road,
Mhm.
right where the road meets the come back, right where the road we drive on meet, yeah, right
Oh, right
there,
here. Yep.
we found a sharpened stake. Okay.
Hmm.
And people are like, oh, big deal, sharpened stake. Well, what you're trying to do is find connective tissue for how it goes along. Now, the reason this is so defined is because there were so many rocks there. It is huge. And it's not as susceptible to the heaving that freezing and thawing does. When you go to the path, you move up, and if you were to go straight up this stone road,
Mhm.
it is a steep slope. There's no way you can get cattle or oxen pulling something heavy, a
Up this
heavy
way,
cart
yeah.
up there.
Right.
You have to do the switchbacks or the zigzags. So we found cribbing, lots of cribbing going on, and we found this vertical stake, cut stake. So then we hook. Um, the idea is to see what's going on to the right this coming season. If
Ah.
you know to go this way, but we decide to go left,
Uh-huh.
and again we're finding these vertically cut stakes placed on the swamp between the swamp and the path, and we're finding under swampy areas we're finding cribbing. So it's man-made, and so that's why it was so important to keep finding these cut stakes. And Steve Guptill said, "Yep, that's how we do it today, and that's how they did it 300 years ago.
Wow.
That's how they surveyed it in." And there's one really funny scene where I was working with Marty, and Marty was having a ball because I think he found 6 of these stakes.
Yes.
And yeah, that was such a fun day. He's singing shanty songs, and we're just digging away, and it was just an awesome day. But yeah, so that's when you start going, oh, is this really a pathway? And then there'd be a vertical stake.
Yeah.
And Dr. Spooner said, this is what happens when you have 300 years of thawing and freezing. Stones get heaved. It's not going to look pretty.
Mhm.
And it wasn't. Um,
Yeah, and that was Ned Zwicky that asked that question, and thank you, Dave,
yeah,
for putting that to us, because that was again, it was an interesting question and one I think that many of us thought about. And I was thinking, well, that maybe you guys had not cleared that off as much as you were already determined as much as this section was as it turned and went up alongside the roadway. And you talk about those stakes, and I think somebody even had mentioned to us at one point, and they said, well, the stakes were only this long. How could that be a marker? Well, that was the portion that was actually in the muck, which we've
yeah,
heard is very good preservative, and the
yeah,
rest of it would have been out of it and rotted
yeah,
off. So is that
yeah.
true?
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, if it's in an anaerobic environment, it can last thousands of years. Um,
No.
the bog people over in Ireland. There's 4,000-year bog people with skin. You can see tattoos on them. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a great preservation environment. And then, you know, we carbon dated the stakes, and similar dates from the beginning to the end. And, you know, when they came back 1680 to 1720, I was blown away by that.
Yeah.
So again,
Yep.
that's the connective tissue I'm talking about.
Yes.
So what were they doing building this through a swamp? It wasn't for farming. It wasn't for fishing. What was it for? You know, this isn't, you don't build this in an afternoon. And why do you build it on that side of the island? There are other better harbors you could have unloaded in other areas. Why do you come around in the secluded area, build this thing that would have taken heavy loads? I don't know.
That's a very good, yeah, that's a very good question. And, you know, and I thought the same when you had mentioned earlier, you had talked about the fact that they would come across. Now, I'm going to show another little picture here. Now, I'll ask you another question about this later on, because the reason I grabbed this picture, but over here, you see the original stone paving that came off of the water area, like a wharf or whatever. And then it turns and it comes along here, right along the edge here. And I thought, why in the world would they, you know, and you mentioned it earlier, why in the world would they have come along this way and then maybe turn up this way and head toward the swamp? That doesn't make any sense. But then you just explained, if I heard you correctly, you were explaining they're going to take a zigzag approach. So this would have been an easier trend or truck, you know, for the oxen to pull up along here, finally get up to a higher elevation, then make the turn. So
exactly. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that over here, there's a picture that I had also. Let's see if I can. Here's one. This was late in the season. Obviously, this was just this may have been on the finale actually. Now this is up in the uplands. Is this more? I'm going to switch back one more time. Is this more up in this area over here? Is that where that was? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we were, and we went up there. We sort of skipped up because we were running out of time. And Mr. Nolan has done so much bulldozing, like, and that's why we had to have Billy come in and remove some of that. Like there was a meter, 3 feet of push. So Billy removed that, and it's just been so landscaped. So Miriam and I were trying to find an area upland that hasn't been demolished.
Right. Yep.
And we found this little space, and we put up some excavation units. We found some small cobblestone, but the thing that was really exciting is we found a piece of coal, and Gary found some ox shoes. Again, the connective tissue.
Right.
We found 2 bags of coal, not charcoal, coal, at the stone road. It's in the swamp at the far end, and then on the upland we found some coal and some ox shoes. So, you know, it's not definitive,
right?
But
as the to be continued project, I would imagine, right there.
It's very suggestive that that they are connected.
Now, is this going through to lot 15 and then to the money pit? Do you think?
Don't know. Don't know. We keep expecting it to switch back the other way, but nothing on Oak Island does what you expect.
Oh, no, we know for sure on that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's definite. And it was very interesting how you had mentioned earlier too, and you obviously mentioned this on the show, that, and I'm going to bring this picture back up one more time so I can point with my point. I always try to get a bigger pointer so people can actually see it. If they're looking on a phone or something, they're like, I don't see where he's pointing. Yeah. And I apologize for that, folks. I still haven't gotten that done. But as the road came along this way here and making its way up, this is the area where you said you found very little evidence at all, except for maybe those marker stakes, right? Is that along this area here?
Yeah, along the path. So I call it the stone road is the big feature, and then the stone path, and then the upland. So, and Rick was we were finding all those broken ceramics right at the interface between the upland and the swamp, right where there's an elbow. You can see a dramatic elbow turn upland, which again is marked by stakes. And that's where we found all the artifacts. But along the pathway, nothing. I think we found a couple of pieces of ceramics and maybe a couple of ox shoes, and at one piece of coal. Miriam found a piece of coal. But other than that, it was like eerily absent of artifacts.
One of the things that really amazes me, you're going through that road and everything else, and there is no history behind it, no paperwork, no nothing really, which I find amazing.
Nothing. And the British and French, they love their paperwork.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You could find tons of building projects in the archives that they did. You know, they kept track of everything. So maybe it's out there somewhere. We just haven't found it. But Doug's pretty good. Doug's pretty good at finding stuff.
Yes, he is, yeah.
And Charles Barkhouse, and you know, if they can't sniff it out, it's probably not there.
Yeah, that's very true. One thing, while I have this picture up, I wanted to ask as well. Now, in Nolan's Peninsula, right here, sticking out into the swamp, and then I believe it was right here that they found that flat stone feature last season, or I say last season. Season 8's now last season. In season 7, at the end, that when you came out, wasn't that first stone platform that was over here, just off of Nolan's Peninsula? Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah.
And is that where, do you think they're two that are connected in any way? The stone path going along the woods, the uplands here, and that feature that you found there? Seems like
it would be pretty hard to say that was just a coincidence. But that's another area I really want to target. There's several areas in the swamp that I'd really like to get to. You know, there's a lot more to do in the swamp. A lot more to do.
So chances are season 9 might see it being drained once again. Yeah, I know you can't speculate on that. I know. That was me just throwing that out there, because I'm thinking, yeah, so we're definitely not done with it.
Yeah, Steve called it the Oak Island Interstate. So you don't think you found all the roads and everything really yet.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It simply is amazing that all that is there, because and I see that, and like I say, while I got this picture up, I want to mention it too. It almost looks like this is covered up.
Yeah, we protected it with garden mesh.
Okay.
So all the really sensitive areas, it helps preserve it, but it also helps us when we want to come back, because we let the water back in, and when we come back in another month or whenever it is, it'll be so much easier just to uncover it than have to completely re-excavate it.
Yeah, total sense. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I saw that in this. I saw that, man, it looks like it's covered with something. I don't know if the folks can see that in this picture, but you can see how white it is. And it's covered with some sort of it looked to me like it was covered with some sort of a material that, again, thinking that it was just that, so you could easily get to it again when you need to. But that's an amazing feature. And one of the questions I always had too was, does it extend? And it looked like somebody was digging over here to see, does it extend out into the ocean? Because obviously the road here at the bottom of the swamp, the modern man-made road, was not there when that was. And we were kind of curious, does it extend out into the ocean at that point? Was that ever something you looked at?
Yeah, they did some drilling there, and they didn't find anything. So pretty sure it stops. And again, there was that stake we found right in the middle of it, like a starting stake.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you see is all there is.
All there is. Wow. And you said that maybe, hopefully, at some point, if they get the opportunity to go coming off the path or the stone road here, and then turning to the right, maybe to see where it goes that way.
Yeah, there are some interesting boulders to the right, but we just ran out of time.
Yeah, that's unfortunate too. Yeah, or the shortened season, especially too, because
how far did you get with going toward the eye of the swamp with the road and everything?
Well, we got right across. I think we turned upland. We turned to the upland, the eye, if I'm right, if I remember correctly. So I thought, it had come along, and then it started to come out a little bit. And I remember telling Rick, I said, Rick, I think this looks like it might be heading to the eye. and we're just like, oh God, what could that mean? And so we painstakingly excavated it, trowel by trowel,
That was
and
over
it
here.
turns out it ended up turning.
Ah,
So it didn't go to the eye. Um, More work needs to be done. We were
okay.
looking for where it turned upland. I can't definitively say a branch didn't lead off to the eye because we didn't get there.
Okay.
We found the upland area, and that's what our goal was before the
Winter.
weather just kicked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something too, is that when you were out there with Dr. Spooner last year in season 7, and we're looking at the eye of the swamp, and he was out there, excavating, and they went in, they took out big scoopfuls, and it's got those large, very large boulders around there. And I always, to me, I want the eye of the swamp to be significant. You got your triangle shaped swamp, you got the all seeing eye, as I would call it, on the top of it, just like on the dollar bill. And I wanted that eye to be more important. Now, when he dug it up, and I think you were in on board with this at the time anyway, was saying that it was a blue clay mine, rather than anything more significant than that. And I thought, man, I was a little deflated, because I'm thinking a blue clay mine. Yeah, there's a lot of blue clay there. But again, if it were, they would need a road coming out of it to be able to haul some of that blue clay out of there, in carts or whatever. You're not going to hand carry it. We didn't have the machinery, obviously. Um,
Mhm.
do you still feel that that's what it was, a blue clay mine?
To be honest, I was so busy. I didn't give it 2 seconds thought.
Hmm.
Um, Miriam and I were just full tilt on that
Hmm.
path,
Yep.
and we literally didn't have a second to think about the eye. Rick's just like, where is this turning? Where is this
Yeah.
turning?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Another foot, another foot, another foot. And so that's where, I mean, I'd love to investigate more of the eye,
Yeah.
but I can't speak of it really. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to say it's that, and again, this is just me talking, but I keep wanting to say that all that blue clay was used as a sealant to seal up a opening that goes down through the eye of the swamp. But again, I don't know. Who am I
As
to
you
say?
can tell, Jeff has his eye in the swamp,
Oh
and
yeah,
I have my ship, and I have the ships.
the
So
ship shape anomaly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then we have our two areas that we're most intrigued
speaking of
by.
it, were you over there when they were digging and they couldn't get down there because it got too muddy? Did you
Mhm.
get a look at any of the beams or anything that were there?
No, I was up in the uplands with Miriam, but I could hear yelling and swearing, and so we knew something was going on down there. But Miriam and I were up in the uplands.
Yeah.
You two seem to work very well together.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we're hoping that we get to see that again in season 9. That they will actually do they were talking about put a coffer dam in around, and that's over here in this area here at the bottom of where they think the ship shape anomaly would be, or where they discovered the beam and that piece of railing and stuff like that. So we're hoping they do that in season 9, that we get to see exactly what that is. But again, I think if hopefully if things get rolling, you get back out of here on the island pretty soon, that you will continue this and find out where in the world does that road actually go, because it is important. And a lot of people, they thought, man, they spent the whole summer, working on, in the swamp and finding this roadway. But the roadway is significant. It does tell a story as to what was going on. And there was a point you even mentioned on about the road, saying that it could have been added on to or used by different peoples over the course of the history of this thing. Was that something that you had mentioned? I thought I heard you mention that on the show.
Well, there's the idea that it might have been used by two different periods.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's hard. It's hard to
Right.
tell. We have the stakes, 1680, 1720s, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we all the ceramics are 1760s, 70s, 80s. So something was going on 1680s,
Mm-hmm.
1700, and then 50 years later, 60 years later, we're finding artifacts.
Right.
So suggests that it was two different groups, two different periods.
Yep.
Now, I also heard and I thought I heard you say this, but I may be wrong, that there was double cribbing in a couple of the spots. Like they had a road that sunk down and they put cribbing back over the top of the stone and put new stone down in certain parts.
There on the big stone road, there was definite cribbing, lots of cribbing all the way through, big sticks, little sticks. And then it looks like it over time it sunk. So it saddlebacked. And then another layer of stones was put on top to level it. So at the ocean end of it, you had the big stones. And then as you move towards the upland, you got these smaller cobbled stones because you were getting out of the mucky, swampy area. So it had been fixed over time. I don't know how long it took to get the sway. Sorry.
I know my cat's being really good right now. She's
I'm having.
she's.
I have two of them here right now, and I'm kind of waiting.
Yeah, trying to steal my moment.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, about 2 weeks ago, Jeff will attest, my daughter has a beagle who decided to start barking up a storm right in the middle of our show. So
yeah, that was
we've had this happen before, believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all right.
Cats and kids.
Yeah, yep, cats and kids. Yep, animals and kids. Speaking of, we were talking about the stone roadway and then getting up by Nolan's property. At one point, I was thinking you guys were going to have to go. Okay, this garage or shed or whatever that red building was, this got to go because we got to dig under it. So
we'd be yelling at Tom to get the coffee ready. We're going to be in his living room in a few more days.
So, I know that's what I was thinking. There too.
But he was awesome. He's just like, guys, if this story is continuing, keep going.
Wow.
We're following this road, and to have someone on side like that is amazing.
Yeah, truly.
As an archaeologist, one of my biggest obstacles is property owners.
Yep.
And fair enough. Who wants their backyard dug up?
Exactly.
But to have someone like Tom being as supportive as he was, you couldn't ask for better. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. There's another picture I have here. Again, I got me and my pictures. Everybody's familiar with me and my pictures. I didn't have 100 this time, folks. Just maybe only a dozen that pertain to what we were talking about. But as you were digging along and getting over to where I think, if I remember correctly, somewhere near where it was turning, you came across this vertical wall. Yeah. And we didn't really get a whole lot of answer as to what this was. Do you have anything that you can add to that now? Was this certainly some sort of a vertical wall?
This was a vertical wall. It's where the stone pathway branched off. Mm-hmm. And we thought, okay, here it's going into the uplands, but then it sort of petered out. But then we came on to this and these stones, and they're intentionally placed, and it's not very long. And the first thing that I've seen is a cellar. A house cellar. Mm-hmm. So I said, guys, I think we might have a house cellar here. So we spent a lot of time digging on that. We excavated it, found a thick burn layer, mm-hmm. and some areas that look like there might be small tunnel-like spaces. I believe in one of the episodes, Rick put his arm through into one area.
There was one of our members asked, did they ever pull anything out of them?
No, again, we this was right near the end, and Rick's just like, guys, we need a plan. We can't be running from one place to the next place to the next place. And he said, Aaron, what's the plan? So I said, guys, we need to find where the road meets the upland, or the path meets the upland.
Right.
This isn't going anywhere. And this is going to take a long time. So we either spend our last days here or on the path trying to find the upland. And I said, let's follow the path.
Yep.
And so we abandoned this area, but we'll be back. I hope.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Certainly hope so. We do too, because it's something that, and you found that burn area in there as well. And right off the bat, many of us were thinking, that, or at least I was. And then, I think also Gary had found a piece of iron that he had said, well, this looks like a piece of grating, like a fireplace grating or some sort of a,
yes,
it looked burnt as well.
Area. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We were wondering if this could have been some sort of a sitting here at my armchair quarterback, sitting here looking at the show going, oh man, it kind of seems like that would have been some sort of a structure. And then of course, with all the pottery that was found, the burn feature that was found, I'm thinking some sort of a kitchen or a bunkhouse or some sort of a shelter where they had built, also a place for cooking or keeping warm as well. I don't know. I mean, again, at armchair quarterback, I can sit here and make all the speculation, but you're on the boots on the ground. What do you think about all that?
Those ideas were we thought the same thing. Yeah. Again, it's an area I'd like to spend a week excavating properly to determine, because there's something there. Hot fires were burned there, so hot they changed the soil red. And it's got structure to it. It's intentionally stones were intentionally placed. So we'll definitely we covered that area as well with garden mesh, with the intention of going back to it.
Good. Yeah, because it is important, because it would definitely tell a bigger story. And I remember, you mentioned earlier about Rick at his age being in there, and on his knees and digging around. And I remember you saying something to him. He kept finding little pieces of pottery and he was putting them on a dustpan, as he would find them. But you said something about the next inch, just another inch or whatever.
One more inch. Yeah. He's just like, well, if I stop now, what if just one more inch is the big thing? And I was like, oh, it's only if you had one more inch. Yeah, for sure.
But then he did come up with the big plate bottom, though, right there at the end.
Piece,
Oh yeah. You'd have to say, Rick, end of the day, get out of the muck. We'll be back tomorrow, Rick, because once you start finding artifacts, it's exciting. And Rick, he just turned into this enthusiastic kid, and when Rick gets excited, everyone gets excited. So that was great. And just the diversity of the artifacts too was important. So it's almost like this might have been a midden, we call it, a garbage heap where things were deposited. And so why there? Why put a midden there? Well, it's probably because there was a road there and there were no trees that grew up. So the people in the 1750s, 60s, 70s had an opening. They'd come from their house and throw their waste on an open area by the by the swamp or the waterway there. That's what I'm thinking. And we had to stop. Like, you kept going. Every trowel you'd find artifacts. So that's another area we're going to go back, and it's a lot more work to be done there as well.
What about the weight that Rick found at the end of the year? What were your impressions?
That was significant too.
Yeah, that was exciting. I've never found one excavating, and it was just like, what is this? And of course, it's covered in dirt. And this is when you'll hear me say often, let's get this back to the lab and clean it up. And we took it back to the lab, cleaned it up. Doug took a look at it, and he's instantly on it, trying to research it. And it was really exciting when we found out that this sort of weight historically has been used to measure money, precious metals. Does it mean that that's what this was used for? No, we can't prove that.
Exactly.
But it was a weight scale to measure something.
Yeah, that's what when I saw that thing. You're exactly. When I saw it on the show, once it got cleaned up and he was holding it in his hand, that's what I had said to the screen as I was watching. I'm going, it looks like one of those scale weights that you'd put on a scale to balance, to see how much weight in gold or silver or whatever it may be that they're measuring out, how much is actually there. And when he said the number on it, he said, it looks like a 5 on it. That's when it clicked in my head. And I said, it's some sort of a scale weight. And it turns out, I guess, they're pretty certain that's what it is. Did they come to that final conclusion? Okay, good.
Yeah, but they did send that out, didn't they, to get it to find out where it came from, the metal makeup and everything?
If they can.
If I remember.
Yeah, I'm sure it's being looked at. There's so many. The nice thing about working on the show is they have resources.
Yeah.
Most of my projects, I might get to send one carbon sample off, you know. But here it's just like they have specialists all over the place, and it's really exciting. So there's a specialist who I'm sure it's been sent to a specialist, and we're going to get all the information on it that there's out there.
Because Laird had a real broad range on that, like 1,300 to 8. He really couldn't pin down a year on that.
There'll be someone out there who knows exactly what it is.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And that's for sure.
Before I forget, your viewers, the viewers are right on it too. Do you remember that long bar that David Fernetti and Gary found?
Yes.
Yes.
And they passed it to me, and it was badly burned. And this is what happens if you get too focused on thinking something. Like when we're in the swamp and they're finding the railings, it's ship. That's what's on my mind.
Right.
So when they bring me this iron bar that's been burned, and they pass it to me and they say, "So what is this?" I'm thinking ship. It's something to do with a ship.
Yeah.
But then a couple of viewers posted a picture of it's an arm that holds up a big cooking pot, and it looked exactly like it.
Yep.
So, I love it. I don't know all the answers, not even close, nor does Dr. Spooner. None of us do. So in the moment, we give our best guess what it is. And that's what we do not on the show. That's what archaeology, you go back to the lab, you look it up, you talk to people. And then at the end of the day, you write a report and you say what it is. I was wrong. And I think that the two of the viewers, that it's right. It is the arm for a large cooking pot over a fire, and that would explain why it's so badly burned.
Right. Yep. Through hours and hours and days and weeks of being used as that piece, it's definitely going to get covered in soot.
Yeah.
Like that.
So my hats off to the viewers who are researching.
Yeah. And I got to say that too, that's why, I love doing our Wednesday night, we do a Wednesday night recap show of the Tuesday nights, TV show. And, so many times, I'll just ask a question and there will be several people that will come up with answers for that. And they may be different answers, but they're always thinking about this stuff, just like I am. And, it's like when, I'll go back to this, we talk about Laird sometimes being the crusher of dreams. And I'll just go on this little tangent for a moment, because everybody will find something and be like, ooh, what is this? Is this? And they found that one little piece that looked like a cane topper. That's what Gary was kind of thinking. It was some sort of a cane topper. And then they showed it to Laird and he goes, oh, it looks like a lipstick case. And everybody's like, what? And all of a sudden, before he even got to that point, there was people posting on our page pictures of that emblem on the end of a like a lipstick case or some sort of piece of, like that. And they were posting it and they were finding it all over that's what I love about the fact that we have so many members that are engaged in what's going on, and they jump out there immediately and go find out, what does this look like? Or, what does it resemble? And that, like you just said, that's phenomenal. And that's exactly why I love doing this, because
our members are great with that.
Yep. Yeah. Really smart people.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so, but anyway, going on with that, Carrie Steinfeld had asked a question. Dr. Taylor, what do you deem the most telling artifact found in the stone pathway?
Hate to come back to it. The sharpened stakes.
Yeah.
They give us a date. They show us that it's man-made. They show it that it was planned. It had planning to it. So, I know people don't get excited about wood, but that was the most important artifact that I found on the road, besides the road.
Yeah, besides
the road's not bad either.
Yeah, exactly.
We also have a member, Brenda Dixon, asked, what would, such amazing treasure hunt as you're having now with the fellowship, did you ever believe you'd be doing something like this on Oak Island?
No, I'd heard of Oak Island. I'm not from Nova Scotia. My parents are. So I'd heard of Oak Island. And, archaeology can be a very serious profession, and and the chance to do something fun. I mean, the archaeology is serious, don't get me wrong, but you got to pinch yourself sometimes and go, man, I'm on a treasure hunt,
Mhm.
and you use the same methodologies, the same archaeology methodology, but it is fun. If you can't have fun, my
Oh,
two
yeah.
my two most important things are work hard, work your butt off, and have fun.
Yep.
And that's what Miriam and I, we had lots of laughs and we had fun. And
Oh, yeah.
the end of each day, we would literally come up, take off our mic gear, uh, pour ourselves into our vehicles, drive home. I would eat supper and go to bed.
Yep.
But you have to have fun,
Yeah.
and oh my God, we'd have laughs. And Gary and I have very similar senses of humor. And just tell a quick story. Whenever he'd come by, we would just look at each other and we'd read each other's minds. And he would say something, and I would start laughing. And then I'd say something, then he would start laughing. And then the producers would be like, guys, we got to finish this. And we'd just be laughing and laughing. And a couple times they're just like, all right, we're taking a 10-minute break. and Miriam's like, oh, for the love of God, guys, grow up. And it was just like, I'm having too much fun, You're tired. You're near the end of the season. You
Yep.
got to have laughs. And
Oh, absolutely.
Gary is a laugh machine.
Yeah,
I
I can
don't.
imagine trying to work with.
When Marion, when you said something about the people bringing you the lay person over stuff so he can investigate it, and Marion looked up at you and said, "That's not going to happen."
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah, that's why I love working with Miriam, because she is a bright, articulate person, and she's a straight shooter, and she's good at what she does.
Mhm.
And viewers, she's only 22.
Yeah.
I mean, think about
career
that.
ahead
Like,
of her.
she graduated to have a camera stuck in your face 10 hours a day. Imagine going to work wherever you work out there. The second you show up to work, there's a camera in your face and you're mic'd up 10, 11 hours a day. It can be stressful.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Can't imagine.
Miriam was just a trooper. And I hope she comes back. I don't know what the plans are. But she was a lot of fun to work with.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seemed like that. You saying like Jack had mentioned earlier, it just seemed like you guys you've worked together. Obviously, you're working down in Cuba together, so you know her, but you guys, worked well together. And then when they brought Liz on, Liz and Miriam came kind of on together about the same time. And then Liz kind of, was working with Laird, and that made them two made an awesome team. And then you and Miriam made an awesome team. I think that pairing just worked out so very well. And I wanted to make it, you could tell because so much of the time during the season, and we like to see that humor pop out from time to time, because you guys, and I will say too that we're living this through your eyes, and so when you guys are laughing, you're serious, you're excited about a find or whatever, you're bringing us into that with you, and we love to see the humor. And I would just want to break out. There was that point where Marty came in, and Marty was helping you dig in the roadway, and Marty found that piece of that steak. That short little piece of steak. And he had said something about, he goes, yeah, this is nice, but it wasn't as good as that steak I had last night for dinner. And then you came back with immediately, well, I got no beef with that. I was rolling. I was rolling. I mean, we love to see that stuff.
We have a sort of a little award called the Drayton Award, and it's for who has the best puns over the course of a season. And it's the Drayton Award. And I think I got 1.5 points for that one.
1.5 points.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you would have been a little higher. I don't know what your pointing system is there, but that was a good one. I really did like that a lot. That was pretty funny. Jake Roberts, who, by the way, I'll be having on the show here coming up on the 22nd. Jake has been doing some really interesting stuff on his own. He asked a question like this, and he said, aside from the current artifacts to date and possible treasure, please speculate, and I know that's hard for an archaeologist to do sometimes, but please speculate, what would be your dream archaeology? What would be your dream find on the island? I mean, yeah, speculate if you don't mind there for a moment on that.
Besides a vault full of gold.
Oh, I found the edge of a box here. I don't know, what is this? Yeah.
Oh, just ignore it. Go right on by.
That's nothing.
I mean, I was just blown away by the stone road through the swamp. I was not expecting that. I was expecting to show up, find some few pieces of broken pottery, and a couple rusty nails, and I'd be done in 2 weeks. So, all my expectations were completely blown away by the stone road through the swamp, and I spent 2 months on my hands and knees in the muck, loving every minute of it.
Yep.
So that was enough for me. I don't get caught up. My job isn't to find a treasure. My job is to provide information to Rick and Marty and Craig, pass off information to the historians. They'll take the ball and they'll run with it. I can't get caught up hoping to find treasure. I'm like, what is this? How old is it? What was it used for? And I have to stay grounded in that, because if I get just caught up in the whirlwind of treasure hunting, I'm no good. I'm just a treasure hunter with no plan, no strategy. I'm not helpful for Rick, and I'm wasting his time. I need to be focused, and I need to be telling him what I'm finding. He can take it or not. But so I can't get caught up in the roads. But yeah, would I love to find a treasure chest? Of course. But I have to stay focused on the task at hand, and that's, what is it? How old is it? And what was it used for?
Right. Yeah, that's Brenda Dixon said professional, and that's exactly right. That's you are really a professional in what you're doing, and that's very similar to what Laird had said. When they had asked him to come out, because archaeologists are not treasure hunters. You guys are the facts. You find facts and put those facts together to complete a story. And he was very adamant about that. I'm not a treasure hunter. So he wouldn't answer questions like that. He said, but again, would it be nice to come across a chest or a vault or something? Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's goes without saying that I think any of us would love that.
And you're adding to history while you're doing it also.
Yeah, exactly.
Side benefit.
Yeah.
So Mary Louise McMahon asked the question, what has most surprised you? And I think you've answered this by the Stone Road, possibly, but what has most surprised you during your Oak Island experience? And when did you first hear about Oak Island? So
I heard about Oak Island as a young boy. I remember watching, forget the show, Mysteries or something, with Leonard Nimoy talking about Oak Island as a young. I remember that. What surprised me the most was how well everyone got along. That surprised me. It's been few times that I've ever been on a crew that large, even a smaller crew, where everyone is pulling for each other, working our butts off, including the camera crew, including the producers, including the cast, including the people cooking the food. It's just like this one team, and we're all tired, but we're all just like, you know what, I can do better. And so that surprised me, just how much people liked each other, were pulling for each other. And I think it all goes back to the right to the top. Rick, Marty, Craig, they set the tone, and you buy into it or you're not on the island. And so that it is a fellowship. And did we argue and disagree and have some fights? Absolutely. We did not agree on everything. Lots of times we didn't agree on anything, but it was all with the common goal. We had the common goal, and there's nothing wrong with disagreeing.
Exactly. Yep.
And at the end of the day, best idea wins. Doesn't matter if it's coming from me or Rick or Miriam. Cameramen were piping in going, well, I actually seen something like that before. Wonderful.
Yep.
So to answer your question, that's just how much people got along and really pulled for one another. I mean, on the show, and I've seen comments about Gary possibly planting stuff, or he's always Gary spends days finding blasting caps, beer bottle tops, and so every 100 times he goes into the ground, he might find something really interesting, and you're pulling for him.
Yep.
Like, I don't want him to find a blasting cap, but he spends hours and hours finding nothing.
Yep.
Modern garbage. And I just want people to know he does not plant anything. He works his butt off, and when he finds something, he's authentically excited.
Yeah.
He doesn't put it on for the cameras.
That comes through automatically.
It does. It really does. That's true, Jack. It does. When you see him get excited and holy shamoly, all right, or whatever, you're right. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier about you guys. We're living this through your eyes and your actions, and when we see him do that, get excited about something, we're excited too. It's like, oh, what did he find? And in watching that drilling down episode that was just on a week or so ago, the making of, which I loved that one. I really, really did love that. You seen, we saw that the camera crew, the sound guys, those guys are in it too. I mean, they are so excited. Okay, I hope Gary finds something, today. And he found some coins and he was all excited. And it was just so, everybody is invested in this, and you get the fever being on the island, like you said. Yeah. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dave, let's see. I'm looking at another question he had. He had a couple of them. Ned Zwickley, Dave Ned Zwickley had another question about the that we did talk about, the one where he had mentioned about the stone foundation, the area where you could put a hole, your arm up there. And I still have that picture up, don't I? I got so interested in everything you were saying, I forgot I still had that picture showing. But he asked about that one there, and you had answered that already. Another question that he had was about the wharfs. And we don't know, but he asked this, and he said the wharfs on the west side of the pond on the Ball property, he had noticed a stone on the land for the wharf that looks identical to the stone path that you were following in the swamp. Have you ever taken a look at this feature to see if there's any kind of a tie to the stone road? Have you been able to look at those features at all?
No. I mean, it's definitely worth a look.
Mm-hmm.
I'm open for any ideas. Talk to Laird about that. It's definitely, I mean, everything's on the table.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
And that's something about this being the COVID year. Rick and Marty both had talked about that everything was, they were talking about the end of season 7 doing the big dig. So we expected, all right, we're going to get in here, we're going to get the big dig. Well, they ran out of time. COVID, they didn't get on the island until like early July or something like that to really get going. So that was put on the shelf. But because of COVID and because of that, we got to meet you. And I think you guys were all brought out on the island, and you got to explore areas that may never have been discovered if it hadn't been for the COVID delay. Do you agree with that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. A little bright light in a dark period of time.
Exactly right. And like you said,
and Rick insisting on it the whole time that the swamp was the key.
Yeah.
He kept repeating it over and over again.
Yeah. There was even that point where Marty said, he was joking. And again, here's a little bit of humor from Marty where he was joking with Rick going, I told you that there was something to the swamp all along, We're like, yeah, you hated the swamp. You didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. We certainly saw that, but that was exciting. It's always, like I said, that the fun. And I'm going to jump back to, there was a question about the burn areas in the road, and there was actually several, I think, or you found a couple of them. And Dave, Ned Zwickley had also asked about this, but also Judy Rudabush had asked about the heat. She said to heat up all that, in going back to the Pine Tar Kiln, shouldn't there be a lot of charcoal? You did find some, but
yeah, we found a lot of charcoal.
In the Pine Tar Kiln?
In the Pine Tar Kiln, yeah. And that's why we knew that it was multiple burning events. There was a substantial, and so they put a barricade up, and then they stacked the wood on one side. So you had a lot of charcoal on the upland part, but and there was a line of stone, but on the downward slope there wasn't any. So the burning event was defined in one area. It wasn't spread all throughout like a forest fire might have done, or
right,
campfires or something. It was in one, and it sort of matches up what the pine tar kilns in Scandinavia would have looked like. Again, 70% pine tar kiln. It's the leading theory until something comes along and is better.
Yep, and you mentioned that you have to go with that exactly. So yeah, and then that's a very good description. Yeah, that's what Brenda was just saying too. And then Dave also had a question about the large burn area in the turn road got a little attention, and again you talked about that a little bit already. But there was a couple of them, I guess, found in the road, a couple of different burn areas, but again, we'll see more about the road, I think, coming up, hopefully in the next season when you get the chance to see where in the world does it really lead to. And again, I know that, some people didn't like that whole road part at all. They're like, find some treasure. Well, no, but this does tell a story. It really does. And I think you have to be more on that history side, really wanting that history side to be able to be told. That you want that. I do anyway. I really want that information.
I want to know how many more roads there are. You have not been up all the way yet to see if there are more roads going up that way, even toward the anomaly or anything else.
Yeah, we need to know what was going on that island leading up to the 1795. We're pretty sure what happened after 1795, but we need to figure out what happened before 1795.
Right, exactly.
And if we can do that, maybe we can find exactly where the money pit is, or we'll understand exactly, who built it. And like all of this is building a bigger picture.
Exactly.
And otherwise you're just digging blindly.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yep, you're right. There was also a question, and this was one of Linda's, Linda Simpson, our admin. She had mentioned, she said, what did we find out about, remember when you found that leather strap, like a boot strap or something? What did we find out about that? What was the final conclusion on what that was?
I believe possibly, most likely, a book binding. For a book binding, I believe that's what the episode was. They took it to a specialist in Halifax.
Yep.
And I believe he thinks it's from a book binder. Not sure.
Okay.
Not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, or like a strap to a journal or something. I think.
Yeah, like a leather bound book.
Yep.
With a strap on it, and who knows what they might have needed that book for.
Yep. And one area that we kind of jumped over and we didn't talk too much about, and we got about 20 minutes left or so. We get about 2 hours. I like to hold these to 2 hours because it just gets too long for everybody. And you've got things to do in your day as well, I know. But I wanted to touch back about the mound. Initially when you had been brought out to the mound, you looked at it and because of your familiarity, I just blew that word. You being familiar with other mounds and serpent mounds, you had mentioned it kind of reminded you of that initially. But then was it your take that was nothing really more than a spoils pile after all?
So it wasn't well presented, that episode. When Laird and I were called to that, we immediately said, this is a spoils pile. I said, I grew up in Southern Ontario, 20 minutes from the Serpent Mound Provincial Park. I've seen serpent mounds. This ain't one. I can understand why Doug, it has a serpentine shape to it.
Yep.
So I was trying to support Doug, saying I can see where he might have thought this. And Laird and I both
didn't come across that way on TV.
Yeah.
Laird and I both said it's a spoils pile. It's too crude. It's got massive boulders. And so I was a little surprised to see the episode where, when I'm saying clearly this, and then they said, well, do you want to excavate it? And I was like, you want to pay me to excavate a spoils pile? All right. We excavated it. We cross-sectioned it, and there, it's a spoils pile. The interesting thing about it, though, that doesn't mean it's not interesting.
Right.
We found artifacts, a nail from 1380 to 1440. So where was this spoil pile from?
Right.
That's the interesting question.
Isn't that also
So,
where Gary
yeah.
found the parts to the cannon also, wasn't it? From the spoils pile?
I think that was
I
on
did
the.
spoils pile. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think the
think that
cannon
was up
parts
there.
were found down in the south end of the island, and the spoils pile, that mound was on the northern end of the island. Maybe on
Yeah.
both on lot 15 or somewhere around. I forget where the cannon parts were found, but they were, I think, kind of an opposite end of north to south on the island initially.
Yeah.
But
And and you got to be careful when you're talking serpent mounds, because you're talking about First Nations history, and
Yep.
and Laird and I were very clear, this is not a serpent mound, and so I was quite surprised to see them calling it on the show. So anyone out there listening, it was always thought of as a spoils pile by the archaeologists, by Dr. Spooner. So anyone out there listening, it is not a serpent mound. Never was, never will be.
right. Yeah, and that's something that and Jack and I were talking about that, because if it had been some sort of a serpent mound or a burial mound or something like that, that's all halt right there. There's no more, right? And is that my
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'd call in the proper people. We wouldn't. It'd be. We wouldn't do anything with. We call in the proper people. But the first thing Laird and I said was, it's a spoil. And I remember Rick going, "Okay, 1 in 100, or what percentage chance is it? Is it a serpent mound?" And Laird and I said, "Is there a number less than 1?"
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah, that got a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's hard to say about that, but anyway, when you had, I think it was Scott Barlow came out, and they actually took the excavator and actually pulled a big section right out of, cut a slice in it, across of it. And then you were with Miriam there, and you guys were like, yeah, it's definitely, a spoils pile. But then again, like you said, you found that rosehead spike in there. I think it was a rosehead, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
that Gary found over there. Does that mean it's not significant? I think it might be. The thing is where did those spoils come from? Like you mentioned.
Where did those? And and what's interesting is, did the person who dug it's from a pit, and
Right.
there's a couple pits nearby. Did Fred Nolan see something built that he said, "I'm going to put my pit here"? And I brought up that the bottom was the early artifacts. So they're the first up, first down. Did he see something that made him dig there? He wasn't just digging holes everywhere.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
strategically dug a pit there. And did he see something? And that's a question that intrigues me.
Right. I mean, I would be one of those people that would be like, okay, so you guys are writing this off. You guys are all busy over in those important areas on the island. I want to go through this, and I want to see what else we can find. Now, I know Gary went over it with his metal detector. And again, we see Gary when he's working a certain area of the metal detector, we see him for just a couple of minutes, where he probably spent hours. But that'd be the thing. I wouldn't mind be invited out to just dig in that. I would just dig through that to see what else could be found there, because there may be other answers that would give you an idea of really where, like you said, where did it come from?
Yeah.
That's I think is very interesting to find out.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're getting close to wrapping up here. Let's see.
Question I have for you.
Go ahead.
Are you as amazed as Rick and Marty are at how much this show has literally exploded with millions of viewers and thousands of questions, podcasts like us, and everything? I mean, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think this would grow like this and explode?
Yes, I'd be lying if I said no. But it's a really touching story about, and I'm not the person who came up with this, about a family. And it's about Rick and Marty and this brotherhood. And it's a romantic story. You know, it's an interesting, compelling story, and they've got some great characters in it. You know, so before going on the island, I was surprised how popular it was, but after being a part of it, I can see the attraction. And there's so much that's made up, and I don't have a problem with scripted TV, but it's now every now and then it's nice to watch something that's real. And
Exactly.
Right.
at the end of every episode, there's not some great treasure that we found. It's a lot about frustration, and you know, it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, and that's compelling. Being able to be on a real treasure hunt with the highs and the lows, lots of lows, but I think people like that. They don't need a gift wrap with a shiny bow on it after every episode.
Yeah. Well, some people do, because I get that you're talking to people about it and they go, "Oh, you mean that show where they just keep finding wood or whatever?" It's like, yes, but if you really watch the show and if you're interested in the history and what all that wood all tells a story. Like you said, with the stakes you found in the swamp, or a piece of chunk of wood that they dig up from the money pit, and they date back before the actual finding of it. So it's pre-searcher. It's significant. It does tell a story, and it is important. And if you're invested in the story, that's where you get that. But if you're not, you're like, they just keep finding wood, whatever. I'm not,
Yeah.
okay. Well, you're not interested in history, and you're not interested in, what were those people doing 180 feet underground?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
were they there? Why did they make a big chamber down there or whatever? That's what's
How they dug 180 feet down with the
how
tools
did
that
they do it
had.
anyway? Without how many men did it take to do that? So,
Yeah.
one more interesting question here as we start to wrap up. Joel Horsley asked this question. She wanted to know. She said, if you would go back in time on the island, this is interesting because I thought this is kind of one of those, make you think about it questions. If you could go back in time on the island, what period would it be for you personally? You may never think about that kind of thing, but I was just wondering, because now you've kind of had a chance to look at the different layers going from the, pre 1300s all the way through to the finding of the money pit. What time period would you be wanting to check out?
I'd like to go back to 1680, when the stone road was being built,
That makes
and
good
say,
sense.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Just before we go, we keep talking about men. What I really think has been underreported, and I've been thinking of the idea of writing a book about the women of Oak Island.
Oh yeah.
They're a story that hasn't been told, and I think they were really important to the treasure hunting. And I think it's a really interesting story that needs to be told. And so I've been playing with the idea about writing a book on the women of Oak Island. And
You should
I
do
don't
it.
know if anyone would be interested in reading it, but I just think it's a story that's been neglected.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And then the memorial that Rick has done there, of course, to the women, that I hope, we keep thinking about, well, if they find out where the money pit is so they can do the big dig, hopefully it doesn't, end up, well, sorry, memorial, but we'll have to build you back after we're done, because we're going to tear up part of this thing to put the big dig in. So yeah, but that's very, very true. That there were some and women that had to put up with a lot that, over the years with their husbands digging and spending their entire lives, like Dan,
The rest all come to mind.
the rest alls. Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh. And the tragedy.
Dying. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would, you should do that. You should write that book, because
Oh.
if it interests you enough to put it down onto paper and to research it, I think that's one of those things where you feel compelled to do something. I think you would find a lot of people wanting to know the answers to that. Yeah. And see what you
Well,
come up with. I'd be interested in it
Right.
for sure.
I might just do that. Yeah.
Now there's a lot of, I see the members are right now, a lot of, wow, what a great idea, Susan said. And Brenda said, write the book. And Dave's clapping. Ruth is saying, do it, Dr. Taylor. Strong women. Yeah. So everybody's jumping on board. They want that
Right
book.
on.
You got a
Awesome.
good idea
All
there.
right. All right.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Dave Blankenship before he passed away, Aaron?
I didn't, unfortunately. No. Yeah. Unfortunately, no. I heard he was a great man.
He
Quite a
came across
character.
that way in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I agree.
everyone speaks fondly of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't know
Yeah.
what the timing was, but he
No,
was a history in himself of
Yeah. He
that
was.
island.
I
Yep.
heard.
He seemed
Yeah,
like
he's
he
a
might have been a
force
hard
of
man.
nature.
Yeah, a very hard man. I mean, seemed like he was very set in his ways. That he was when he got determined about doing something, you don't try to stop him from doing that. That kind of person. Not that he wasn't nice or nothing like that, but I got the feeling by watching, some of the shows that were done on the drilling downs and talking about his history and his past a little bit. He seemed like the man that when he was determined to do something, don't get in his way because he's gonna be determined. He's gonna get to what he was looking for. And I'm amazed by the fact that he was able to find, when I read the story about the fact that he found 10x, the chamber down below 10x with divining rods, and that told him, yes, there's a chamber down here. And then he went through the expense to put all his version of caissons down through there, and he found it, and there was a chamber down there. That just amazes me. I mean, I'm still fascinated by the fact that dowsing rods told him it was there. Not that I don't believe in those, but it's one of those things where you're like, how in the heck does those things work? And yet it was there, and he found it, and it was,
Yeah.
yeah. Did it find him in the treasure? No. We were hoping that by the time that he before he passed away, that they would definitely find something. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but many of us were hoping that he would, and his story would be vindicated. And it's the same thing we're talking about now with your work in the swamp. And the fact that Fred Nolan was so adamant about that swamp that he knew there was many answers. And so now the work you are doing are vindicating him and his belief that that swamp was important. And then there was also the question about it being two separate islands. You've heard this many times, I'm sure. And that the fact that there was ocean water between the two. What do you feel about that? What's your thoughts on that real quick?
It's not impossible.
Mhm.
It's definitely possible. Sea level has been rising and dropping, and
Mhm.
and Earth landscapes change. I don't know. I mean, that's definitely in Dr. Spooner's area of expertise, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah. Interesting. We're trying to. We've reached out to Dr. Spooner about coming on, and he hasn't committed yet, so that's fine. We're kind of, but I'm hoping that one day he will, because again, as you've mentioned here yourself, he's a man he's very professional. And when we wrapped up the season, that for those of you in Canada haven't seen, but I guess he was on the second to last one too, talking about when they took the water samples from C1 and
Yeah.
the other wells around the area, some wells that I didn't even know existed. He got those water samples out of there, and then he found that silver and copper and zinc elements found in there. And his question in the war room was, "Do you believe there's treasure?" I mean, he was serious, and when he comes across that way, and he's very talking about a truckload of Gary or Billy Gerhardt truckload of silver to make that much in the water, I'm on board with him. I mean, I'm like, yeah, let's go. He's telling
He,
the
he's a remarkable guy. You don't get it a lot on the show, but he is a very funny guy.
is he?
When it's work time, he's very serious, but
Mhm.
he is a very funny guy. And last year, he actually won Teacher of the Year at Acadia University.
Really? Wow.
Really?
He is excellent,
Wow.
excellent, a good friend of mine, and I love spending time with him. He is a neat guy. Yeah,
Well, tell him that he should come on the show with us sometime
Yeah.
so we can talk to him. And if
you
he
would
wants
love
to come
him.
on with you, that's fine. We can, if he wants to have somebody else come on too.
I'd be more than happy to share a stage with Dr. Spooner.
Oh man.
Great guy, great guy.
He
Yeah,
definitely had the quote of the year. We'll put it that
yeah.
Asking everybody, do you believe there's,
way.
yeah,
And then he said seriously right after it.
yeah,
And,
exactly. Yep.
and that's when everybody looked up like, whoa.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, no ego. He's not afraid to be wrong. He's, you know, he's Dr. Spooner. He's internationally known, and
Yep. Just like you are now too.
just a guy you'd love to have a beer with. He's just a
Yep.
great guy. Yeah,
Yep. And
yeah.
and that's something that, and again, wrapping up here, I would say that all of you guys and women that are on the island are working so hard to get to the end and get us some answers on this. Every one of you that I've met And I get the impression the others that I haven't met are all just wonderful people that, again, I would love to sit down someday and just have a beer in the mug and anchor and just talk about stuff all day with any of you guys and
yes.
women. They're just so much. You seem so real to us, friendly, and like you and everybody that I've talked to, every cast member that I've talked to, and theorists that I've talked to have all said the same thing: a wonderful group of people that you would want to get to know, and we all do. Every one of us, we want to get to know you. I mean, and
well, let's hope this COVID passes quickly and we can have that beer.
I know. Yeah. Well, Tony
Sounds
Sampson's
good to
here.
me.
Yeah, Tony's in at least he was. I saw his name pop up and everybody was saying hi to him there. Tony comes on, he frequents our show very much in our group.
Another great guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots
and
of stories.
we're going to bring about, I think we got somewhere near 300 people that are going to come up and go on his boat tour, his Salty Dog Sea Tours. And then we're all going to get, I hope they have a lot of seating outside the Mug and Anchor, because I told them I'd buy him a pint. And we're all going to sit around there and have a pint and talk about stuff. And I was going to do a live show from there. So, man, if we could, I would love to meet you in person, sir. I tell you, it's been an honor to have you on twice.
My pleasure.
You're a fountain of information and such a professional person in your field. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your insights with us. And I just hope and pray that things work out. You get back on the island. I know that you guys are in shutdown right now. Is that correct? You guys are all closed down?
Yeah. Do not leave your house. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. We've been through that, here. I'm in Western Pennsylvania and
I'm in Ohio State.
And we went through that too. We're not now. We're allowed to go out. We have to wear our masks when we go out and stuff like that. But we really hope that this passes for you guys quickly and that you are able to get back out and about, and that we hope that you stay healthy and your family and also the Oak Island team, the people that are there in Nova Scotia. We hope that you all stay healthy and make it through this and get on that island soon. Okay.
Thank you very much and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Folks, thank you so much for everybody that's come out and watched with us today. This has been a fascinating couple of hours that we've been able to share with Dr. Taylor. And again, hats off to him for coming on the show once again with us. But we really appreciate all of you that have come and watched today. And do us a favor, if you're out on the YouTube side, please click that subscribe button. It helps us out a lot. We really, really appreciate that very much. Again, thank you, Jack, for being here with me. Linda and Jan, for all the work you guys have been doing out there with the chat and everything, and trying to keep me straight and sending me messages as we go along here. But again, thank you all so much. Again, thank you, Dr. Taylor, and we hope to talk to you again really, really soon. If you want to hang out just for a minute as we close up, we'll carry on. All right. Everybody have a good rest of your day. And don't forget, we'll be back on here Wednesday evening at 7:30. And we're going to be talking some drilling down and start working our way into maybe talking about Skinwalker Ranch at some point as well. So we hope to see you there. You guys have a great week. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye now.